You're so yeah, it's recording. Okay. Hey everybody, this is Toncz-Pataki with the Quest for Truth, and I am so excited to have with us Dr. Sharnael Wolverton. Thank you so much for being here with us. It's exciting to have you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. It's such an honor.
Yeah, same here. And for those of you that you've joined us before, we welcome you back. And for those of you that this is your first time watching our channel, you know, our channel is geared to bring in guest speakers or guests that have facets of truth. And with those facets of truth, we want to use and we want to bring every facet that everybody carries of truth to wake up the people. You guys, we need to be awakened out of our spiritual amnesia. We need to be awakened to know who we really, really are and what our mandate is in order for us to create the right timelines. So I'm so excited to have you, Dr. Sharnael, with us. So I want to ask you, let's just, for people that have never heard of you or seen you before, can you kind of start a little bit with your background?
Sure. Absolutely. And again, thank you guys so much and all the work that you're doing to help people remember and to get activated. My background is kind of a lot, but just like everybody, I mean, how do you nutshell your 50 some years of life? But basically, grew up military and traveled quite a bit and had an encounter at 4 years old that was pretty pivotal in a spirituality and just truth and love, and actually had an encounter with Jesus. I happened to be on Easter Sunday in my grandmother's house. My parents were out of town, and that was pretty huge. And basically put me on a path to understand a lot of different things and to really want to delve into truth and love and to activate as many people as possible. I believe that there was a frequency exchange during that encounter that caused me to be a different individual and my biofield to contain different fields of information that maybe weren't activated up till then. And you know, over the, you know, my mindset, because I wasn't raised Christian or spiritual, didn't really have any knowledge of things like that, but I just had this hunger and desire for truth and to understand what was going on in the world, and just for service to help humanity. And when I moved several times. I lived in Europe. I lived all over the United States, several states. We'd move every couple of years. So finally ended up moving to Louisiana. And at the time, there were quite a few opportunities to get into some religious type situations. And that seemed to be a very welcoming place for me, and jumped right in to get friends, and to I was very welcomed and loved on. And there was a lot of things I didn't understand, and a lot of boundaries that I wasn't familiar with, and just some thought processes and thought forms that I wasn't familiar with, terminology, of course, and you know, but learned and jumped right in and did the things and said the prayer, and you know, really thought that this would be an avenue for my service, you know, my call to service. And so went through the whole like high school and college and seminary, and really wanted to be, you know, maybe a youth pastor or something. That was like my biggest goal. You know, it's like, if I could just reach a few kids and take them bowling and have fun, you know. But you know, that desire just to really have the biggest audience ever of being just as activating as many people as possible was not hidden. I mean, it was there. It was underneath all of that. And the religion that the denomination that I was in at the time would not allow women in ministry. Right. So they just kept saying, you know, take a back door, study this other thing and get, you know, your undergraduate and something, and then just, you know, work towards marrying somebody that can do it. And
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like, okay, of course that makes no sense whenever there's people overseas with the same body parts who are doing what I
Yeah.
wanted to do. So
Yeah.
it's just, I'm sure you understand, but
Yeah. Yeah.
eventually there was a woman named, well, first let me back up. I had an encounter with a real person,
Uh-huh.
and his name is Bob Jones, and that was very life changing. He knew things about my entire life.
Hmm.
He prayed for me. We had a major encounter. I again feel like that was another activation within the field. Some things turned on
Yeah.
and flipped. And from that point on, he introduced me to a man named John Paul Jackson. I
Hmm.
started working with John Paul, and I worked with him for 4 years. We
Hmm.
taught on dreams and visions and traveled all over. And he's just an amazing person who really understood quantum physics, neuroscience, dreams and
Yeah.
visions, hearing God. And when I started working for him, it was literally the first time I ever went out to work with him on my way to Africa. And on the plane, I was just like thinking, how amazing is this? Like, I'm finally doing it. And I literally heard inside my head, don't get too comfortable. You won't be here very long. And I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? Because like I had just, you know, waited for this moment to finally be teaching and helping and encouraging.
Yeah.
And it wasn't long after there was another lady, Patricia King, who
Yes.
had some people contact me
Hmm.
asking me about some different encounters and things that were happening because she had had some similar and invited me to a conference. I went up there. She called me out. She prayed for me, anointed, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Basically called me into full-time ministry
Hmm.
and on my own, and had some things that she had seen previous to that day regarding me, and it was pretty pivotal again. And when I came home, I had phone calls from all over the United States where people asking me to come speak at their
Yeah.
churches and
Ministry.
their
Yeah.
conferences. And there wasn't a lot of women doing it at the time, even still. But I found myself in mostly male conferences.
Right.
Of course, the audience was all female mostly,
Yeah. Yeah.
and but I, I did that for 17 years and just traveled. I was in 44 countries and
Mm.
did a lot of things teaching on quantum physics, neuroscience.
Mhm.
Um, you know, my undergraduate was in wellness and kinesiology, which is energy and wellness.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I still had that kind of underlying training and or understanding. But
Yeah.
so I ended up getting really sick, and I had spent years during that 17 years very, very ill.
Mm.
Most of it was poor choices and just working like 120 hours a week and traveling the
Yeah.
way I was, and found myself looking for answers. And the Western
Yeah.
community for medical wasn't doing it for me. I was on 30 different meds, and
Oh my
all of it had
goodness.
side effects and
Yeah.
different charts, and that take this in the morning and that at night, and these two
Right. Right.
can't be together, and this has to be with milk, and this has to be with food, and this can't be with anything.
Right.
The
Yeah.
mental gymnastics of all that,
Yeah.
and was still in
You,
a lot of pain. Yeah, yeah.
and so you found yourself yet again after 17 years at another pivotal point.
Yes,
It seems like the
exactly.
Lord was literally taking you from glory to glory to glory at different phases in your life. And here you found yourself yet again. So when you found yourself at this place, what helped you?
Uh,
Because obviously Western medicine wasn't doing it for you. So because I have a feeling this is a place where your knowledge maybe of the next evolved, right?
yes,
So
exactly.
go there and let us know what happened from there.
Yes. So I had felt that I would always go back to school and get my doctorate in divinity.
Mhm.
But I kept feeling like maybe I needed to go a different direction regarding natural health and biblical health. And so I really prayed, and just there were signs and synchronicities all over. I mean, I was literally on a plane asking God, is this what you want me to do? And outside they had this little cone like thing on the tarmac, and it said ND and had an arrow pointing that away. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty clear. So I went back to school, I reverse engineered my own body just from the training that I was getting while being in school, while raising children, while still traveling. I mean, I was writing books and, all of this at the same time.
Yeah.
And, I never thought that I would be going back to school to be a doctor, to like have a practice and
Okay.
like see patients. I just was looking for the understanding, the teaching, because what I was seeing is as I learned to reverse what I had done, and get off all the meds and really do everything on a natural way. When I was, I had dropped like 80 pounds pretty instantly in about a 4-month, 16-week period, and
Wow.
feeling better. And, so I would show up to these conferences that I had done for year after year after year. And I remember being in the back of this large church that I was supposed to do something with Graham Cook. And I was in the back and I walked in and Graham was standing there and he was like talking to me. And then he was like, not even realizing that it
Yeah.
was me. And I was like, it's me, and then even went to Amsterdam and was doing a meeting there. And I've been there several times every year. And I walk in, I go to the registration, I had my suitcase and I'm like, just off the plane going, where's the green room? Where do I go? And they were like, you need to register, ma'am. And I'm like, it's me, So
That's awesome.
not only was I feeling better and looking completely different, but
Yeah.
when you feel better, you have more energy,
Absolutely.
you just have a different countenance. And people were like, okay, we would like you to teach this and what you're doing, because we need to hear that. We were
Yeah.
seeing the prayer lines and the prayer
Right.
bulletins, and they were like, something's missing. And
Yeah.
so I started teaching that in the churches and just, mostly on regular godly choices on how to keep your system and your immunity, in the highest frequency. And, frequency and energy are everything. And
Yep.
found a lot of scriptures to support that. And I
How did they
got,
receive that, Dr. Sharnael? How did they receive the energy and the frequency? How did the church receive that? Because
not very
it's
well.
okay. Yeah.
Even though there's a lot of scriptures to
Yeah.
support everything there, I mean, there's like 1600 scriptures in essential oils. There's,
Yes.
I don't know how many scriptures, and for the law of attraction and
Yep.
for, but I had like a machine, it's called a Zyto, and it would diagnose what's going on. And I was bringing it to these conferences and letting people Zyto in the back of the room, in between sessions, and word got around about that. And I mean, it's just an energy,
Yeah. Yeah.
thing with your ham. It reads the galvic response to your body, and it can tell you exactly what's going on in your body. And people were like, she's a witch, she's using
Yeah.
witchcraft tools. I mentioned this yesterday in an interview. I was in Florida and there were several pastors who got together and heard that I was coming in. They were just like, cancel the conference, or telling their people in their churches not to go because I was a witch, and all of this mess. And I'm like, do you like use an x-ray? Do you use
Yeah. Right.
MRI? Are you using your phone? This is all electric and energy.
Absolutely.
And God gives us knowledge to help. And
Yeah.
but I mean, as I was telling Truth Seeker yesterday,
Mhm.
Truth Seeker,
Yeah.
whatever. I love Derek. And
Derek. Yeah.
he through my journey, even in the 80s, it was like music was bad. God forbid we
Right.
bring an electrical guitar in the church, and we were kicked out. And then the gender thing, and then hearing God. They're like, what do you mean hearing God?
Right.
It's like, so giving prophetic words and hearing for other people, doing prophetic evangelism, teaching on dreams and visions. With everything that I've done so far anyway, seems to be a little bit earlier than everybody catches on. And then when people catch on, they're like, oh, it's fine, but that first little bit. So I'm doing what I can to like decree and create something different where I'm
Yes.
celebrated everywhere I go. I ignite Christ in everyone I contact. And I'm getting a lot less of that, like, feedback, I guess, or
Yeah.
negativity. But yeah, so just that. And
Yeah.
the paranormal, the supernatural, UFOs, aliens,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you. So here you are, from a little girl, you had an encounter with Jesus, you moved to New Orleans, and then
Baton
you're
Rouge.
going
Yeah,
to Baton
right
Rouge,
outside
sorry,
of
and
Baton Rouge.
then you're going to Christian, you're doing school, high school, college, all of these things. So you're growing in the Lord. You're going through this sickness, then the Lord shows you other things. You go and you get your doctorates. So you're learning all these things. Now, how did you go from there into the paranormal, into understanding the quantum realms, as far as, wait a minute, we can create different timelines. Wait a minute, there are other beings out there. It's not just angels. It's not just Jesus, Father, God, Holy Spirit, and angels. There's other beings that Father created, and they're here ready to assist us in bringing about the correct timelines that Father has for us to engage with as humanity. So how did you transition from the knowledge of frequency and sound into these other supernatural realms? What did the transition look like?
Well, I've always taught on truth, and
Mm-hmm.
had a major encounter with a being named Truth in 2010 that really electrified my entire body, and still does. And um, I've always had these encounters along the way,
Yes.
when I was pregnant or getting a new job or seeing that there was a new thing coming.
Mm-hmm.
These things have come to visit me, and my only understanding of it was, angel,
Yeah.
and just because of the programming and or my own thing. Now, also on a side note, I've always known about UFOs and aliens, and that kind of seen them. I've seen
Mm-hmm.
UFOs several times all over, and I was a part of a My Lab project as a child, unfortunately. And so, I've always had that. It's not something I've talked about
Yes.
over the years, except for to a handful of people. And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't until last year, or maybe 2019, that I was finally like, I'm going to just talk about it, because
So
I
good.
could
Yeah.
not. And there's just too much going on. I think there was a lot of people in private meetings that I had talked to that were coming to me with
Mm.
these things that were happening to them. And I was in the process of getting my own healing,
Yes.
and just trying to support my own anxiety and stress
Sure.
about some of the trauma that happened. Of course, with everything about the DUMBs and the children and
Yeah.
things like that, I think that really sparked a lot of triggering for people who have been through that kind of abuse. And people were coming forward like crazy. There was all kinds of things being exposed in Hollywood and what have you.
Yeah.
And so it was just a global collective awakening
Right.
on some levels, and people were finally coming out and saying, you know
Mhm.
what, me too. And I don't
Yeah.
mean in the gender, thing,
Right.
although that was also a thing.
Right. See,
That,
it's so good you're talking about it. And for those of you watching, I just want to just pause for a second, because I want you to understand something. This channel that the Lord has, that Father God, that Creator, whatever you feel comfortable calling Him, has mandated us to release. It's called the Quest for Truth. And like I said, the speakers that we bring facets of truth. And the question that you have to pose to yourself as you're sitting and listening to Dr. Sharnael talk and all the other guests that we have is, can you handle the truth? Because truth is coming,
yeah,
and it's going to rock our world. It's going to shake every foundation that the programming that we have been built on, because truth must prevail. So I'm so happy, Dr. Sharnael, that you're talking about these things, about this programming that was done to you, because it happened to so many people. And unfortunately, some of the church cannot really handle that. They don't know what to do with it. They go as far as just deliverance, and that's not what we need in that situation. There's so much more that has been happening to children, like it's happening to, like what the things that have happened to you. So it's such an amazing amazing ability that the Lord is giving you right now, and others like you that can speak about these things and bring awareness to it. Because there may be people sitting in the pews and being like, they think they're crazy, they think they're losing their mind, because they are remembering things, but the church is telling them that that's not true. So thank you so much for speaking about these things. So yeah, please go ahead and share with our audience what was that like, and where do you think on this timeline that we're seeing so much coming out about the atrocities done to children,
yeah.
where? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think that some of the snapshots that people will see and have these images, people have carried them for their lives, and but it didn't make sense in any kind of scenario that we're in as adults,
Right.
because it just seems ridiculous, and like, why would I be having this, or why would someone else be thinking this? And but when I talk to others,
Yeah.
and I have met with several now, dozens and dozens and hundreds actually, and they've all kind of said the same thing. It was like, you know, they do all this stuff to wipe your mind to not remember, but there's usually like a 10 to 20-year period where it starts to not be able to hold anymore. The glue for that can't hold, so some bleed through comes through, and then some of it, like 2% won't at all be able to be wiped at all. So not very many, but I actually, and just like any kind of PTSD or trauma, there can be things that will trigger those memories to come up, and you may remember and have all the physical effects of trauma and not realize why, or not know why, or you may have the trauma with a memory, a flash of something, and then still have all of that. So for me, I had ran into just someone who was part of one of the programs, and then also was introduced to a couple others who were a part of the same program I was in, and it was just like a download of bleed through for me. I get emotional.
Wow, 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 wow. Wow.
So, and your mind tries to protect, you
Absolutely.
know, so you go through, I went through, just like, well, that can't be real, and, all these other things. But
Mhm.
I noticed that the memories, I mean, they couldn't have been just weird imaginations or fantasies, because they were always exactly the same, with the same details, colors, situations, same faces, same people.
Mhm.
So, I started realizing, like, I had to come to understand that this actually happened. It wasn't like something that I made up, and it
Dr.
wasn't that.
Sharnael, why do you think that with you and others like you that went through that particular programming, what do you think the purpose of what they did? Why do you think they did it? So people can get more of an understanding.
There's a lot of reasons. Mind control, MK Ultra, they were programming
Mhm.
several to do things later.
Yeah.
Most of them were scientists that came from Germany after the war, who
Yeah.
were brought over here on these crazy
Yeah. Mhm.
experiments to work on people. Some of it is about mostly control and manipulation, and just seeing what they can do and trying things out. They were, mixing genetics, and genetics with animals, and genetics with other genetics. And I mean, there are so
Yeah.
many things that they were doing, lots of sexual trauma and splitting and altars, and uh, just lots of things,
Yeah.
that is completely inhumane. And of course, about blood and rituals
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So, you know, and as far as empowering ourselves, and keeping the timeline, we have a creative power in the image of God, our creator, who is the highest scientist and the highest creator and the highest frequency. Love is the highest. And as we set our mind on the things of Christ, and I say set, and that's because that's what the scripture says, is set your mind, meaning it sounds like maybe God knew that it would have to be a choice of a deciding,
Yeah.
an action, and not just something that would happen by default. Like, you're just sitting around and you automatically think the things of Christ, maybe. But mostly
Right.
with what we're seeing in the media and the programming that's happening right now, it takes an effort on purpose to be positive and to stay sovereign and to remember your rights and the talent that you want to create. But they're taking all of this, like the Mockingbird
Yep.
situation with, whether it's politics, all the media, entertainment,
Mhm.
sports, education, the medical, all of that, if they can drive in fear at a beta level, then they'll use our creative abilities to lock into that and to keep the power frequency at that fear low vibration for not only the earth and the collective, but then use our generator forces to create that timeline for them. Then they don't have to push or
Yeah.
pull or force or do anything, because we're actually doing it. All
Yeah.
they're doing is telling all the people who have, video or a screen or a movie or music or art or sports or whatever, hey, do this, we'll pay you this, or they blackmail them. And, there's some sort of thing going on where it's like, we'll out you. And,
Yeah.
so they're forced in a way, or be killed, or
Yeah.
there's lots of threats going on right now all the time.
Yep.
I've
Absolutely.
seen the threats even in the political arenas, and this last month has been incredible.
Yeah.
Not just in the politics, but in medical. Dr. Marcola just is taking down his website and 25 years of his information because it's gotten so bad. He left Facebook, years ago because of it. And lots
Mhm.
of doctors are under a lot of pressure and bullying to, lawsuits, and it's insane. It's insane what's
Yeah.
happening. And a lot of them are just completely off. I mean, there's been cures for stuff for decades.
Yeah.
There's no reason for any disease to be on the planet with the amount of technology that is already here,
Yeah.
has been since the 30s. And it's a wonder why Tesla wasn't in
Come
any
on.
kind of history books. He's completely taken out. And he was a big part of major
Huge.
things, time travel, and
Yeah.
um, you know, it was all used for the negative and for control instead of
Yeah.
for something positive. Royal Rife is another one. They took his invention to help with cancer and everything
Yeah.
else, and he was off. I mean, just a couple years ago, I think there was like 35 doctors that were just accidentally
Right.
gone or missing or dead within
Yeah.
a very short like 60-day period, and all of them were very vocal and outspoken about the truth. And
Yeah.
so, we're all seeing right now the narrowing of this timeline of it's really getting
Yep.
to a very dangerous part right now. And we don't have to, but we get to remember that
That's
we can
good.
stand up, that we
Yeah.
have rights, that we have technology within our DNA,
Yep.
that, we can keep a timeline of, love, which,
Yeah.
part of what love is many times is standing up for what's right.
Absolutely.
And even in the face of everyone saying that you're wrong, or you're a quack, or you're crazy, or you're not right, or
Yeah.
whatever they want to say,
No matter. Yeah.
just to stand anyway, you know
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So, Dr. Sharnael, where do you think, I know you were talking about some beings that you encountered, and at that point in time, you thought that they were angels. So I'm bringing that in because with the timeline that we're at right now, okay, we are getting help. I mean, Father, Creator has created so many beings to come alongside and help us. So where do you think we are in this timeline that He wants to create, and who do you feel that God is bringing to come help us besides the angels? We know the angels are there waiting for us to engage, but who else do you feel like God is bringing and has created for such a time as this to help us in bringing His correct timeline?
well, the thing is, here we are, and you could look at the evil and say this is terrible, and it is, but it's
Mhm.
also an opportunity in this
Yep.
polarization to really remember what light is in the middle of it. And it seems to be, no matter how dark it gets,
Mhm.
light shines brighter, and light isn't going to go away. And so if you're in a big huge auditorium and all the lights are out and it's completely pitch black, but then someone does like just
Yep.
a pinprick in the ceiling, that light is going to shine so bright in the middle of it. And we don't really know who we are sometimes until we're faced with actually remembering who we are.
Okay. So
And if everything was just comfy and wonderful and peaceful, we wouldn't even know that we have courage, because we'd just be like living around, doing whatever, living our lives. But it's until you're faced with an opportunity to actually show courage and be courage and stand in courage, that's when you find out what you're made of. And, champions are not born in the ring, they're made there. And I think that we're in some very dire and serious times right now, where we're about to see if people really, we're at the rubber where that meets the
yeah,
road. It's like, are you going to remember your courage, or are you going to do all of the things that they are hoping and banking on you to do? I just saw, like, in a group yesterday, I posted something about, when everyone stands in unity, then that's when it's over. It's like they will push the goal line, as long as you let them. And if we don't stand up, then they'll just say, I've been saying this for years. And it started out, last year with things that were going on. I want you to keep your channel. And I tried to warn people then about what was coming, and they just like do whatever. And I've been working with legislation and trying to get bills passed, and uh, you know, people came and they weren't heard, and everything was just, the clock rolled, and they wouldn't let people speak, and things were overridden and vetoed, and the people still came back, and there were threats and death threats. And it's a high level, intense
yeah,
time if we choose it to be. And also, like I said, I was in this group, and I'm like, we need to stand, there's power in numbers. And someone posted a comment and said, there's a lot more people standing than you can see. And I was like, well, chances are, if you're not standing where I can see, then probably the people who are making these choices aren't seeing you either. And that's the thing
wow,
is, it's like, if you have a rally and everyone can sit behind a computer and just be mad and not want it to happen, but then if you're in the line to go get the V, like days later, and you don't do anything when it's your turn to say something, then you're just a part of it, And so,
wow.
and no judgment to
No, no, no.
whatever anyone
Yeah,
needs to
sure.
do, but and I realize being alone and standing up by yourself isn't always the fun thing to do. And because I've been doing it for about 3 decades, but probably longer. But and people
Wow.
like yourself are looking to have people like me or others on, and you're sharing your story, and you're bringing your vibration of truth.
Yeah.
And um, when we find each other, and we're standing in unity, and locking arms with others
Yes.
who are willing to be God in action. Because
Yeah,
I love prayer. And I mean, a representative today had said, well, we just need to pray. And I'm like, we need to do more than freaking
absolutely.
pray. Like,
Absolutely.
we cannot just sit around and do meditations and hope that this goes away, because I'm telling you, they're not over there meditating this
Absolutely.
into existence. They are making choices, and they're making choices against our liberty and our freedom. And
Yeah.
so if we don't stop them, they will keep going. There's no stopping them unless we stop them. And when we do, then this will be over. But it will take us showing up at rallies, voting, doing all the
Yeah.
things that, doing shows like this, speaking
Mhm.
out on social media. They took my channel down over and over again. I have 30, 40,000 people following. Definitely shadow banned, taking down
Yeah.
videos after videos this last 2 years. And it's like, you say anything real,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they don't want you to say it. And I mean, they threatened my website a decade ago, and just said, if you don't take this, and this off. I mean, I had days to scrub a decade worth of information on
Wow.
5 different platforms, or they were going to take everything away. And I
Wow.
mean,
Wow.
they don't
Wow.
play around with
No.
stuff. And so,
Yeah. So what do you say to somebody that says, okay, what can I do? I just, what can I do? I don't have any power. I don't, what do you tell people that have a desire to do something. They just don't know what to do. What do
Well,
you
the truth is we do have the power. We do have the truth. We don't have to find the truth because the truth is here already.
think?
Do your due diligence and research. Have the courage to think outside of what you've been programmed in the past. I mean, I don't know about you, but over the last 2 decades, every time I get a real understanding with truth and evidence, I'm just like, oh my God, really?
Yep.
That too, and that too, and that too. It's like
Yep.
all the lies, and so but what to do is when share, stand, don't do anything that you don't feel like you're supposed to do. I mean, if you feel like you're supposed to do it, but there are no laws in place to do any of the things that they're saying. They want you to think that you have no power. They want you to think that you can't do anything, but you do.
Yeah.
You can do anything you want. And, if you're not harming anyone or hurting anyone, then, and following the actual laws, but there are no laws in place for the things that they're talking about right now. And so, and there's a lot of people who are leaving their jobs.
Yeah.
And that's a hard choice, but there were people who were in Germany who left and fled their lives to, and many of them doctors who left and started over and dug ditches or whatever in the US, and knowing that they were surgeons and could do amazing things, but that was the choice that they made to live somewhere with freedom and liberty, and to not be a part of the system. I mean, we will be accountable.
Yeah, absolutely.
To something, and I think there's a show, a Netflix series that I've been watching called The Last Kingdom. And there's a real King Alfred, and he was, mentoring his son. Wow, I'm gonna get emotional. Mentoring his son in this situation during war.
Yeah.
And the son had made a promise to this group of people, like, if you show up here for this war, we're going to bring all these troops and we're going to help you fight. And it was just a group of like 30, 40 people he made this promise to, who he knew they were going to be ransacked by this other group of people. And, the people who were in charge of the 30 had come and asked for help, like for backup. And they were like, we will be there, I promise. And so they came to this, field where they were supposed to meet, and they were going to fight. And it was just 30 of them. And the next, thousands of the quote bad guys show up, and they had them all circled, and they were just, starting to kill them. And the king and the king's son came, and the king wasn't really, he was just like, I didn't sign up for this. This isn't my agreement. And the son kept saying, but I promised, I promised. So they all came, and they had all these people behind them ready to just jump in and save these 30, 40 guys. And when they came up there, they sat on this cliff, and they just sat there, and they were waiting on the king to say, okay, go.
Wow.
And they waited and waited and waited. And meanwhile, another guy was killed, another guy. I mean, they're just all going crazy. And the son kept looking at the king going, Dad, do something. Like, when are we going? It's time. It's too late. It's time. It's time. And the king just sat there. And finally, the son was like, I don't care what you say, I'm going. And he just like screamed a war cry, and they all went in and they saved these guys. And later they were talking to the king saying, like, what was that all about? And he was like, it had to be him to do it. He had to decide. He had to be the one, because he was mentoring him into kingship, into authority, into power. And it had to be his choice. And God will not override. He's not going to fix anything for us. He is waiting on you and me to be God in action, to be the hands and feet, to be the co-missioners here. We were sent here to occupy. And occupy doesn't mean letting evil take over. To occupy means to get in a position to stay and to keep the vibration of love and boundaries, which is love, which means you will not harm anyone. Someone has to stand up and say, you will not harm me or any of my family or this school or this government or what. Someone has. If we don't, then it is going to be biblical.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so powerful what you're saying, and it's so true. I think what has happened is we have been programmed. I'm talking about we as a whole, as a, the Christians as a whole. So many of us have been programmed,
To
just
wait
be
on
ready
God.
for the rapture, do nothing. Because whatever is going to happen is going to happen. God has already allowed it to happen. It's been written down. So therefore, just wait on the rapture. Just, there's nothing you can do. Politics is going to be, don't get involved in politics. And I think that
Yeah.
has been such a demonic strategy, because it's lulling people back down to sleep and in a coward position. We are literally, when we are sitting on our tuchuses and waiting for the rapture and letting all hell to break out, because it's going to happen, because it's written in Revelations and we don't even understand um, the Bible. And I think it's such a cowardly thing, because I tell people Jesus did not come, live 33 years of his life, did all the miracles he did just to show off. Look at the power I have because I'm the son of God. No, everything he literally did was to train us, saying, hey, this is the power that you have. And not only this, but so much more than I ever did. So I love the message that you and people like you are bringing, because you are sounding the alarm of the truth, which is wake the heck up, wake up, wake up, because you have the power to change something. We are co-creators, like you said. And, we talked a little bit about quantum physics before we began. And if people just understood, even which, what quantum physics says, it takes an observer to create a reality. So the more we observe the Father's heart, what love actually is supposed to do, love is supposed to give us a hope and a future, not this demonic hell that everybody's waiting for. So I love, Dr. Sharnael, what you're doing. It's so amazing how you're standing up. And I can say, just from talking to you, you definitely have been a female forerunner in this movement. And I honor you. I so honor you for what you've done, the price that you've paid, and what you're continuing to do, and just bringing all these people together. I love what you're doing. I love that you're bringing the Christians, the mystic movement, the Christians with the New Agers together, and you're creating this unity for our job, on our mandate. So what do you want to say to people that have that thought that they don't have to get involved, that, it's been written and it is what it is, and just wait for the rapture? What do you want to say to those people? Maybe they have a desire to fight. They just have been told something different.
Yeah, I think that the rapture is a lot different than what we've been told personally, and
Yep.
that's a whole different
Yep.
conversation, and I don't really want to get
Yep.
into debating that. But yeah, we're sent to occupy, and occupy doesn't mean sit around and wait for somebody to do something else. Whether it's Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, a certain president, you know, we are called to occupy, and that is, we are love, and we're called to love, and that's the royal law, is to love.
Mm-hmm.
And the royal law, which is called the universal royal law, love, may look a lot different than what you think.
Yes.
It doesn't mean getting pushed around, doesn't mean being forced or coerced to do anything. It doesn't mean having to do what some of these people are pretending that you have to do. They know that there has to be consent.
Yeah.
That's the rule. They have to show you, and you have to consent, because otherwise the energy comes back to them, and they know that. So if they can trick people into doing it on their own, then they're free of all energetic feedback, because you did it, and they're just counting on that, banking on the misinformation, the confusion. They've done lots of MK Ultra studies where if you bombard someone for 6 months, 60 days or less with fear, over and over and over again, that no matter how much you bring a truthful situation into the equation, that they will not accept it, because they're so fear minded, and just completely kind of off course energetically to even understand normal common sense, which we're seeing that. Not to mention 5G and some of the electrical things that they're doing, the chemtrails, the food, to mess with the DNA, to technically, I mean, they were doing this in Montauk where they would send certain radars to send certain frequencies in a different, one direction or another. And it was affecting crime, weather,
Yeah.
animals, children, and people would just show up like zombies in the middle of the streets and not know why they were there. They would turn off the frequency and then they would just be standing there going, how did we get here? So I think that, they're using all different tools for people to lose their minds. Suicide is way up.
Yeah.
People are so full of anxiety that, alcoholism, drugs, all these things too, escapism is
Yep.
as high because they're just hoping if they just watch another thing of Netflix, then maybe by the time it's over, that this mandate will be over or whatever. It's like, and but it's interesting overseas, they're not sitting on their butts. They're showing it by the thousands. Everyone looked to America for so long, or we thought,
Yep.
as these pioneers and these people that won't take any shit and
Yep.
whatever, these bold, encouraging patriots, when it's not that way, apparently. These other countries are out showing their God in action and sovereignty and standing up for their rights in the streets, flooding the streets in France and England and Ireland, Greece, all over, and just saying this is enough. And we're too busy fighting with each other about gender and race and who's got a diaper thing on and all this stuff that's just a distraction. And meanwhile, they're making laws and doing things and so yeah, I mean, we get the choice, and I'm all about consent. I love consent, and I think that informed consent is what's missing. Is most of the people that I know are doing the things that they're doing out of what they feel is helpful to society and or to keep their jobs or to just to not buck the system or be worried if you walk into a place that someone might look at you or say something. It's like, oh my God, if that's going to bug you, that someone might look at you or give you a dirty look over it, then we have serious problems. Like, where is your strength and your courage? Where is your authority in you to remember that you get to breathe freely with the oxygen that is in the room, without being limited in any way? It's like, anyway, so
no, that's so good. As I was born in Romania, so we came to America when I was 9 years old. So we escaped communism, literally attempted to escape twice.
Wow.
And just a bunch of stuff. Yeah. So I know. So, I remember, and I tell people this, when I was a little girl, we came here in the 80s, 83. I remember the American, not a bad pride, but a knowledge and an understanding of who you are, which stood for freedom, for justice. I mean, Dr. Sharnael, I remember what it was like, and these warriors that would stand up. So for me now, that has been, that grew up to the age of 9 in a communist regime, and I know what it was like when they put guns to our head and there were wolf dogs ready to kill us. I know that. And to see how this beautiful, powerful land of warriors, that's what America is. How it's just systematically just has fallen asleep. And unfortunately, the church helped that. And that frustrates me. Like, I'm very passionate and I get very fired up. And that's why I love what you're doing, people like you and others that are doing, because I want to shout it from the rooftops, like, you have power. You are more powerful than you can even imagine. Instead of looking at everything that the devil is doing wrong, stop giving him power. Because like you said, the only power that they have is what we give them. That's like what you were saying. It's the law. They have to show you and you have to choose. So when we stop looking at that and start looking at what love says, what God says, that's when we start creating this thing. Because you're right. Europe, they're going on the streets. So it's like, Lord, wake us up to see who really are, the creative power that we have, and do something about it. So again, I so honor what you're doing. I think it's phenomenal and it's needed. We need people like you. And that's why I look at the new age, or the, and I don't like to call them that, but I call them my brothers and sisters on the other side of the aisle, because they have been doing this. They have been fighting, and they have been really shouting it from the rooftop, a lot of them, about what's going on, and encouraging everybody to come in unity. So what do you feel, Dr. Sharnael, that we need to do to create or to jump on a different timeline? Like, what are the steps, if you can put it into steps? And I know it's maybe hard, but what should a person do? Like, they're saying, okay, I want to do this, what do I need to do first?
Okay, so just to piggyback on a couple things, definitely you guys watch the movie, the non-compliant movie, that'll explain, what the part is on the churches and what have you, Christians, what, whoever, which I'm not, I don't really like that word Christian, because it means to follow something externally when God is already inside, but that's just another thing. But Bobby Connor, who I traveled with for years, he always talked about, remembering your sovereignty and your authority. And he always said that there was two questions that everybody is asked. And one of them is, who do you think you are? And that question can come anytime someone stands up for what's right, or, what's wrong, or, whatever. That's a current question now. Who do you think you are walking in this place without your whatever? Or who do you think you are, saying this on Facebook, or blah, 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 blah. But the real question is the exact same question, just a little bit different. And it's, who do you think you are? And so I'm encouraging people to go inward and to actually see and remember that we have the DNA of Christ. We have the DNA of the creator of the universe within us already. And supposedly there is like 97% junk DNA. There's also like 90%, 70% gray matter, and coincidentally 97% undiscovered galaxies. So isn't it interesting, as above, so below, which Bob used to talk about, is when we work on our DNA, that is going to clear up the brain, to open up. And also, would we find more galaxies? Probably. So how do we turn on and activate that 97%? Well, green foods, minerals, supplements, detoxing, making sure you're not using cleaning supplies and things like that in the house, any Febrezes, bleaches, detergents that are harmful to your biofield and your hormones. As far as keeping the timeline and having clarity on what choices to make, also watching the eye gates and the ear gates, because if you zone into the fear vibration, then you're down here, and it's kind of hard to stand and to be, if you're in fear, to do anything. So that is a subliminal, and many times not subliminal, it's just in your face, direct words in these commercials that are being said, or whatever's on the news. Turn off all of that stuff. But your biofield is 6 to 8 feet big around you. Your aura, your biofield, your whatever you want to call it, and it's contained information, and some of that is your expression through your DNA is projected out, and what you think, what you see, what you talk about, what you feel. And the feeling, the heart, is the biggest generator, and it's also the biggest magnetizer. They call it a biofield because it has a dual purpose. It not only radiates out information, but it magnetizes back into information. And so whatever we put out, as it goes out, it basically looks for situations and people that are exactly like the situation in our field, and brings that to us. So, if you're in fear, you're going to collect more fear situations. If you are if you have parasites in your body, then guess what? Then that comes into a victim energy that goes out into the field, and then you're targeted for more victim information, more victim situations. If you put out, love and all the names of God and everything that God is, then guess what? That also creates a match. You only get what you are. And that match will bring in good people, good situations, everything's good weather. You go through the drive-through, you get your stuff that you actually ordered, you get your parking spot, from the little things to the big things. You meet the right person for an interview or a job situation or your partner. But when we love, and love is the standard of the DNA of what the mindset is, of what you're looking at, of what you're hearing, of what you're talking about, what you're feeling, when we really feel love, and we are projecting love towards our brothers and sisters, towards situations, towards whatever it is, then that goes into the field and you will get a match to that. And the frequency, I call it frequency hopping. I just made that up, but I got it from Hedy Lamarr, who was a scientist and an actress, and she created a lot of stuff for the World War II. The submarines would go out, and we were spending a lot of money on weaponry to get the quote bad guys, and we were missing, and we were wasting all this money, and we would shoot off all this stuff, and we weren't accurate, and so and we didn't want to get hit either, right? And so we created this laser focus way. She created this thing where it's like she could zone into a frequency of the other submarine, and it would lock in to that, and it would hit it every time, and we have this on like guns and everything else now too. But the thing is, they got a hold of it, and then they were using it against us. And so they went back to Hedy and said, what do we do? Like, they're using it against us. And so then she came up with a thing called frequency hopping, where she made the instruments of the submarine move and jump to so many different signals that nothing could lock in, and it would create this parameter of like protection around the submarine, so nothing could like match, right? And this is what we are electronically when we are in God love, and we are sending out God love to everything, all the names of God: provision, abundance, peace, El Shaddai, all seeing, all hearing, all knowing, omnipresent, all those things. And when we remember that and we activate that in us, and we just like know without a doubt that this is who we are this is us. We are here. And that is the projection. Nothing can lock in except for all knowing, all seeing, omnipresent, peace, abundance. All of that stuff will start darting into you, because that is what you're creating. That is what we are creating. And it starts with us individually. It's an inside job. It's not about making someone else do it.
Good. Yes.
If we go around going, you're not at church, you're not reading the Bible, you're not doing, if we're trying to make everybody do something, then we're no different than these other people who are trying to make everybody do something. It's not about trying to get anyone to think the way you think. It's not about arguing with anyone on social media, being like, but this is the statistics, and getting a big debate about it, because it doesn't matter. What matters is going inward and saying, what did I do to create this? What's my part? How did this happen? And if all of us did that and then stood for love, whatever that looks like, and projected love, then we would have a whole different globe that's actually detectable in the Schumann resonance. And in our field, we have a field, the earth has a field, there's a collective field. This has been scientifically proven over and over and over again, with OJ and his trials, to Diana, to her funeral, to her wedding, to 9/11, to all this other stuff, that the actual earth shifted. Even in some things that have happened politically in the last year and a half, on certain things that have happened, it has actually shifted the Schumann. And so we are shifting the Schumann, and also the Schumann is shifting us. So it's a vibration war. And that comes with information. So they think if we have information war, then that's going to change the vibration. It's also weather. They know if they weaponize weather, which they're doing, and they make it fear, fear, fear with all the things, then people are so busy worried about that they're not doing anything, and they're missing their authority again. And weather affects emotions. So it can be, depression or whatever. They've seen that they don't have to target zapping everybody from, the galaxies, or shooting anyone. All they got to do is, present information, and then people can be tuned into it. So it's about remembering. It goes
So
back to remembering and then standing your ground in love. And you mentioned, you know, the church is just like, oh, we'll just wait or whatever. That's
yeah.
not love.
No. Yeah.
I promise you, love looks more like looking at the king on the cliff and going, I'm not letting these people die.
Come on.
I'm not going to let it happen. I'm going down there. I will fight.
Yeah. Yep. That's what Jesus did. That's what he showed us. He did it to show us. And that's what we need to do. Absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. Sharnael, I know it's been almost over an hour and I know you're busy.
Yes, I have
Yeah,
way more interviews today.
there you go.
So much.
Yeah. So how can people get a hold of you? I mean, we're going to put your information on our video so people can see it there, but how can somebody get a hold of you? And you have books. You have 5 books, correct?
I have
So
5 books on all kinds of different things. The Science of Miracles.
Okay.
Keys to Third Heaven was my first book.
That's your first book. Okay.
Crystals, Wills and Decrees, card deck. I mean, you guys can all go to swiftfire.org.
Okay.
Swiftfire.org is where all my resources, classes, workshops. I do coaching and biofeedback. I could do that remote. So we can get you squared, you know, and see what's going on with you.
Oh, that's good. So people can call you or remote.
Me, but they
sorry.
Get appointments.
Get appointments. You do through Zoom? Is that how you do?
Through Messenger? Yes, and we
Messenger.
Can,
okay.
For physical, emotional, mental, that kind of thing, and then definitely Swiftfire True TV right now is on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, Telegram. So those are all avenues. But if you go to Swiftfire, you'll see all my social media and be able to plug into that. Definitely get on the newsletter, guys.
Yeah.
Because with the censorship that's happened, you know, they just took down my channel again. I've had strike after strike, and then sometimes just stuff that's just missing, you know, and Facebook too. So if you're really, you know, if you get a yes and you want to see what we're doing, go to the newsletter, swiftfire.org, and the newsletter, and that will tell you where I am next and who I got on and what we're talking about. But yeah, I would really encourage anybody who's really interested in understanding your own miracle power to grab this.
Yeah.
Because this goes into the actual dynamics and techniques and, you know, integral steps in the remembering process and healing. And I cannot even tell you the testimonies we've got over the last 2 years. I mean, thousands and thousands of people with jobs, abundance, having children out of nowhere, finding a partner, getting back with their first love, you know, families coming together who haven't spoken in decades, and then there's healing, financial matters, jobs, like I mean, healing in their physical body. I get probably 100 testimonies a week still. I do encourage everybody who reads the book to contact me and tell me, report your miracles to me, because you will have them. I mean, there's no way you can't. If you read it and you apply it, it will happen. And I really believe in this season, everyone should be reading this, not because it's anything. I mean, I got it all through God and a channel through God in 12 hours. So, but I'm telling you,
it's an amazing tool. Yeah. I encourage you guys. I really do. All of you watching, you know, we have power inside of us, but if you don't know that you have it or how to access it, you're going to walk your whole life as a victim with the ultimate power inside of you, but because you don't know you had it or you don't know how to access it, you're going to lose out. So now you have tools, you know. Dr. Sharnael has tools, and the Lord has given her that, and one of them is through Science of Miracles. Is that
Miracles? Yes.
There you go. So I encourage you, all of you, just go check her out, check out her products, get the books, and write to her your testimonies. Dr. Sharnael, it's been amazing to have you. Such a joy and pleasure, and such an honor to have you. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule and jumping on here with us, and hope to see you again. So thank you.
Thank Wendy. Thank everybody who's watching. And I hope to hear about your miracles and see you standing up, and let's do this. We can do this together. So yes, we can. Love you guys so much. Yeah. Thanks.
And thanks guys for watching. Appreciate it. And please share it. Like this, and you know, share. And we hope you've been blessed by it, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.